Welcome to the Deep Thynkers Society podcast. This week, we're thrilled to have the multi-talented John Fragano Jr. join us. John is not only a gifted musician, but also a dedicated mental health care worker who brings a unique and critical thinking perspective to the conversation. Joining me as my guest co-host is my good friend Tyler, a fellow healthcare professional. Together, we dive into a fascinating conversation that starts with getting to know each other and exploring intriguing conspiracy theories and evolves into a deeper discussion about what is really going on here. So hold on tight and watch as our discussion takes a loop-de-loop into the realms of perspective and the art of responding instead of reacting. Trust me, you won't want to miss this insightful and thought-provoking episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Thynkers Society. I have my guest host with us today, Tyler. How you doing, Tyler?
Good. How are you?
Good. Maddie is still having internet issues, so he is not with us today. And Carissa C is off for the season. We're hoping to have her back again soon. And then our guest today is John Fragano, and he comes to us because we wanted to keep the topic interesting today. John considers himself a critical thinker. So how are you doing today, John?
Good. Actually, I consider myself, I think like my quote was like, I consider myself a critical thinker as opposed to a conspiracy theorist. So, because that's what everybody, they like to label people as conspiracy theorists, but I think a lot of us can agree that, there's a lot of conspiracies that are coming to light and aren't really conspiracies.
Totally. The definition of a conspiracy theorist is basically somebody who asks pertinent questions, evaluates evidence, recognizes biases, and avoids emotional reasoning, considers alternative viewpoints and solutions, and reflects on their own beliefs and adjusts them when necessary. So for those
So the opposite of my teenagers is what you're saying. Yeah. Like the exact opposite of my teenagers.
Yes. Our
Everything that you just said was literally the exact opposite of what she does.
And believe it or not, a lot of people are not critical thinkers. It's actually a computer-based training I work for the government, and it is a computer-based training class to critical think. And so it's computer-based, but they also do have a live class where you actually talk about it. But the fact that they have to have a class on how to be a critical thinker for work is kind of interesting to me. So,
well, I worked in a critical care unit of a level 2 trauma center, so I got my tons of experience with critical thinking.
I can't even imagine. But let's play a little game to get to know each other instead of our traditional way. John, why don't you give us 2 truths and a lie telling us about you and your life? And Tyler and I will try to figure out which one is the lie.
Okay. My name is John. I'm from out of Pennsylvania, Bethlehem. I'm a huge lover of dogs. I work in the mental health field, and I also make music. He's not in Pennsylvania. I know it. But I wasn't one of the things, but yeah.
So you you make music.
I don't think you work in the mental health department.
You don't think he does?
That's what I don't think he works in the mental health department.
I think he actually really loves dogs. So I don't believe that. Did you say you don't love dogs?
No, I said I'm a huge dog lover.
Oh, that's the one that kind of threw me off. I'm not sure about the dog one. So I believe you potentially could work in the mental health.
Do you think that's?
No, I think that's true. And I think that. What was the second one?
The second was mental health. The third one was I make music.
Oh, I definitely believe you make music. What? Go ahead, share with us.
Yeah, I like dogs, but I'm not like a huge lover of dogs. I'm actually a huge lover of cats.
Same. I have 2 cats and a dog, but I love them both. So, yay! I got it right. Yeah, I could see you making music.
Yeah, I do. I've been making music since like 2015 now, almost 10 years.
It has to be the strobe lights that gave it away.
The strobe light, I and the hat too. My I call it my jazzy hat.
Right
I was
on.
gonna say the hat's dead getaway.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump over to Tyler.
Okay.
Tyler, why don't you, since you are new as a host today, and most people listening might not know you, why don't you give us two truths and a lie? Try to think of things I don't know about you.
Oh, what? That's
Okay.
that's gonna be tough, man. I think. So, okay, two truths and a lie. All right. I am 100 pounds heavier than I was when I was in the military. I've been to places where nobody spoke English. I'm a woodworker.
Well, the first one was very specific, and it kind of that one threw me off. So that's like the one I'm looking at. But like, so I definitely think you've been to other countries and spoke. You know that's like obvious, and watch that be the one. But and I can see you being a woodworker too. I think, but I'm gonna go with the 100. I'm just gonna go with it because like my instincts tell me, and then I pick something else, and then it'll be that one. So I'm gonna go with the 100 pounds heavier.
It could be kind of tricky. So I definitely believe that you have been in a country where absolutely nobody spoke English. I don't deny that. I do know that you are larger than when you were in the military, because I've seen your picture. But I don't necessarily know if you're 100 pounds larger. So that's questionable. And then the last one, you said you are a woodworker, which could maybe be true because you are very artistic, but you definitely are a pottery uh, uh, creator. What's the right word for that? Pottery,
Ceramicist.
ceramicist.
Yeah.
So you could be a woodworker too. That I wouldn't put that past you. So that's really rough. I'm gonna have to say you are not 100 pounds heavier than when you're in.
Both of you. Both of you think that's the lie. That's the truth.
Really?
Yeah, at one point when I was running about 5 miles a day consistently, I got down to pretty slim. I mean, I was in like a medium-sized t-shirt, and now I am not in a medium-sized t-shirt. And then as far as woodworking goes, like I'm very like I can do framing, I can build stuff that way, but like as far as like building like furniture or anything like that, like, no, I can't do that stuff. Once upon a time, maybe. And yes, I've been to many places where no one speaks English,
Yes,
and the
you.
interpreter. Oh no. Well, I mean, like I said, I can do like framing and basic wood stuff. I mean, you saw the loft bed I built for my daughter.
Let's be like kids and put on our critical thinking caps. And I'm gonna tell you guys a few conspiracies, and let's debunk or defend our perspective on it, and get some conversation going real quick here. So a little bird whispered in my ear that the earth may be flat and not round as we all thought it. So um I personally am an astrologer. I see the world from the outside in. I can't go along with the earth is flat theory. I can't do it. So I don't believe it. I have no way of defending it other than um astrologically speaking, I could see how it works with the planets rotating around the earth and through the different constellations. What about you, John? Mister, you got your critical thinking cap on?
Yeah, well, if I'm not mistaken, I think the heliocentric model is actually the newer age. Like it was, I think it was like one of the newer ideas. Like, but like all the ancient civilizations, they all believed that in the other I forget what they call it, but the model, the flat Earth model. Um, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's the case. Um, I can definitely see how, like we've been like they were able to explain the heliocentric model and make it make sense in a way. Like obviously we've all been taught it, like we've all believed it at one point, at least in Western culture, but and I can see, like how it makes kind of makes sense, but like once I've started traveling down these rabbit holes and connecting some dots, it makes a lot more sense to me now, from the flat Earth perspective.
Well, Tyler, you were in the military, you were in the Navy, am I right? And
Correct.
you traveled like from sea to sea. What is your perspective on the flat Earth?
I've been lucky enough to be in the position where I literally saw the curvature of the Earth, where I've been able to have the ocean so vast in front of me that I can actually be like, there's actually a bend here. And I've actually been able to see that bend. And I've actually been able to look east to the Pacific Ocean, which not a lot of people have. And I've sailed a ton of it. So I'm a golden shellback, so I've actually sailed right through where the equator and the international timeline intersect. Not many people that you'll meet have done that. Um, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I've also seen some pretty amazing things that I don't think are possible with a flat Earth, like a typhoon or a hurricane. I don't think that would be possible, and I don't think an atmosphere would be possible on a flat Earth. Um, and we in the Navy we never lost one ship over the edge. Never happened once. Um, we've never just it's
Well, I guess would the Earth be like a giant infinity pool? I mean, if we're made up of as much water as we claim that we are, where does the water go at the edge?
Let me ask Tyler a question, because like that's a good segue into what I wanted to ask him. I mean, there's like so when you think of the flat Earth, you have to think of it's not just flat and the water's flowing over the edges. Like there's a firmament, which is the dome. Like think of it like almost like
like the Truman Show.
yeah, exactly. But oh yeah, the other version of an aquarium, what's it called, a tetrarium or something? Like an enclosed ecosystem,
A
like
terrarium.
terrarium. Yes, that's the word. Just like the Truman. So like when you were talking about you had seen the curve, right? Um like is it possible, because like a lot of people like are they make this debate with pictures and stuff and the fisheye lens, like is it possible that like you could see like if considering that there's a dome over us on a flat plane, is it possible that you could see curvature with the dome refracting on the light, like something like that, you know what I
like
mean?
the reflection of the water?
It's kind of hard for me to explain some of this stuff. Like I don't know scientific terms or anything like that. But like the atmosphere with the atmosphere and the dome, like refracting light. Like you know what I mean? Like is it possible that it could look at like a curve?
I I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because I've had ships that are following us all in succession, and I've been able to get so far away that they actually disappear into the horizon. So as the Earth is curving, I can actually see them going like away. So gradually as we're sailing. So
How
I've seen the
different
same.
is that? it gradually goes away, but it's because
Right. But also, there's so many other ways that it's round. I mean, it's like, why would the Earth be flat and the moon be round? Why would all of the other planets be round?
Technically, look at the sun. When you look at the sun and the moon, it's round, but technically we only see it at, like, from like a 2D perspective. It's not, it's round. It's not like we only know it's like, how do we even really know it's a sphere? Like, we can only like take NASA's word
Well,
pictures. Like, I mean, people that actually look at the moon, can you tell? Do you tell by looking at a telescope or a highly advanced camera that it's actually a spherical shape? It looks 2D.
but like, how do you explain the theory of gravity? Like, gravity, we all know that there's gravity. Do you believe in gravity?
Not
I
necessarily.
mean, gravity.
I actually don't.
so
I,
what do you think
I,
is happening then? If you don't think there's gravity, what do you think is happening?
I think it's I've heard some people talk like on videos about like buoyancy. So like basically it's if things are more dense or less dense, like, like kind of like a balloon floating up, or and something sinking down, a rock sinking down, as opposed to a feather just landing on, you know what I mean? Like, it's all about buoyancy and density, stuff like that.
buoyancy is a fluid measurement.
We're made of 70% water.
Right, but how would you explain a balloon going up in a non-fluid environment?
And a non-fluid environment.
Well, we don't live underwater. I mean, we live above water, right? I mean, there's no buoyancy in the air that we breathe.
A different gas. It's different gases that are lighter than the gases that are in the atmosphere. Buoyancy.
Hmm.
I don't know if I'm buying it, but I can't say it's not a possibility because I truly am one of those people that scientists and conspiracy theorists hate, because I definitely believe we are limitless beings and anything is possible if we believe it. So I don't believe either one of you are wrong. I don't believe I'm wrong because
Let's
if
talk.
if there's a possibility of everything, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
like,
from what I,
interesting, like this whole thing that we have going on here. Like, we're communicating on waves of energy right now that's being transmitted through a phone. Like, you know what I mean? It's wild to think about this whole existence.
right?
Like, I thought about that all the time. Like, even with the phones, like back then, like before we even had all this, like, just like when I would call people and just like I'd think about it, like, my voice is like traveling on waves. Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense. But then as I got older and I started getting into things, I probably
yeah.
shouldn't. It opened my mind to things, and I'm it's wild. It's almost like we're in a simulation. Like, that's the way I think of
That,
it.
that's interesting because that's been a topic lately. So, and that's a big thing for me as a spiritual, life coach. My main thing in this world is self realization. So my goal is to help people go inward and realize that they are more than just this meat body and ego, right? And so I believe, and again, not everybody believes the way I believe, and that's fine. But I believe that we are just a spark of consciousness in a physical body. And so for you to say you think there's a simulation, I believe that you're half right. And I believe you're half, and I don't even know, I could be wrong. So I believe that the simulation that we think we're in, especially those who think we're big, is because I was a kid. Check this out, because this is really transparent. I remember sitting on the toilet as a kid and thinking there's somebody up there above, like moving me
with
around
a video game controller.
decisions and controlling everything, right? And I would have deep thoughts, in the bathroom like that about what's really going on here. And so now that I'm more self-aware and I understand how energy works and thoughts create our reality? Well, that would entail us to be aware that we are not this body. We are just a spark of consciousness. And to get there, a lot of people get there different ways. They get there by understanding dreams or, whatever. But if you believe that you are a spark of consciousness in this meat body, then you know that when you go inward, you change your thoughts, right? You have the power to be mindful in every moment. Like, instead of reacting to something, you take a minute, think about it, and respond, right? And if you are responding instead of reacting, you have created you have control over the potential of the creation, as opposed to if you react, you send out a wavelength of negativity, and therefore it could spiral in any direction. So if I go in for a minute, I pause. Let's just say Tyler pisses me off for whatever reason, and there could be multiple, stepping on my toes at the concert the other night or something.
Again or still?
So he steps on my foot, pissed off because, he also spilled his drink on me, and, I'm agitated because I'm hot and I want to react. But when you are mindful, you will just pause and take a breath, because if you take a breath, that gives you a moment to like collect your thoughts. And in those few seconds, you have enough time to de-escalate with the breath and be like, you know what? He's had a few. He didn't mean to step on my foot. Yes, it really sucks and it hurts. And yeah, my shirt's a little wet. I'll be fine. It's not a big deal. I'm just going to move over here and enjoy the concert over here, right? So I took the time to be mindful, and I moved over and I changed my reality because I changed my thoughts. I changed my perspective. I changed the way the game played in front of me, right? But if I allow the game to control things for me, the outside world, it's just a projection. If I don't know who I am inwardly, then life is just going to play out chaotically like I am. That goes along with my conditions that I grew up with, my traumas that I grew up with, all the voices I hear from outside of me. They control me. But if I know what's going on in there, I can choose how that works in my reality. And that's the projection. That's the game. And when you start to yourself more, you level up. And there are cheat codes, like there's quantum codes. It really is like a simulated.
Something I'm going to challenge you about is, what about the individual that has experienced true chaos and has, like, I've been in a mass casualty situation. I've been in a situation after a tsunami hit and an earthquake, and we had 250,000 dead and 1 million injured.
So this
to be mindful.
Is it not scientific based on what I'm going to say right now?
No,
okay.
No, I know.
Very good one. I really firmly believe, through my studies and through my dream traveling and through, listening to near-death experiences, and it's called quantum hypnosis, where they go into the deepest state of the mind. I have learned and feel comfortable in sharing that we come into this spark of consciousness pre-planned. We knew before we got here what was going to happen. We knew, and we came from like, how we all say, I just want to go home. I just want to, we're on this like unconscious search for home and comfort. And this world is like crazy. If you don't understand it, it doesn't make sense. It's because where we come from is like literally heaven. It's not heaven in the way that maybe we've like believed it to be, but there's no pain there. Everything is just, it's different, but it also doesn't have a physical body like we do. So we have this physical body, this meat suit, but it's capable, it's limitless. It can feel, it can experience, it can taste, it can touch, right? So when we come into this body you agreed, Tyler, to come into a life where there's a
You're talking about this like a life contract or whatnot.
A soul contract. You come in with that, agreeing that you would do that because you believe that you're capable of anything that is handed to you, right? But then you don't realize, because you're not human, you don't have these senses, you don't have these emotions, you don't realize until you are in this dense universe how fucking insane it is here, and how really hard it is to control hormones, emotions, our overthinking, outside voices, like all
Natural
this
disasters.
utter chaos. And being human is really hard. It's like probably the hardest thing. And so my point, my answering you about that, about the chaos, is that it was something you came in knowing you were going to have to deal with, but knowing that you could get through dealing with.
Well, it's really difficult to respond in a situation like that when reacting is really what you're trained to do, and that's and a lot of the times that reaction can save your life or end your life, or it can save someone else's life or end their life.
Right.
So
But if
when
you went into that job self-aware, if you, before you had went into the military, if you had been raised as a child, and can in a different way than you were raised, and you were in an emergency situation, your automatic mode would come from a much different place than the conditioned reality. You might actually have never even chosen to go to war if you had been raised differently from a different perspective. Or you might not even have chosen the pathway to which you would end up being in a place where there's a tsunami, because you you needed to go to that tsunami to save people, to recognize something within yourself that you didn't even know that you could do it. That experience made you know who made you know what you're capable of. That experience created a part of you that wouldn't have been created any other way had you not been there. You see what I'm saying? So you chose the path unconsciously to put yourself in place there to experience that. But if you had not had those thoughts prior, and you had your brain different, you had wired your brain differently, you would have ended up in a totally different situation. And does that make sense? Go ahead, John.
yeah, sure.
You had mentioned about like the soul contracts, and like you're talking about, like he had chosen that path, or so basically I want to ask you, because it kind of ties in, like a lot of this stuff is going to tie in this back into spirituality.
Yeah.
It like, what do you think, like, if you think that we signed up for a soul contract, like a soul contract, and we already knew kind of what was going to happen. Like, obviously we can take different routes, there's different paths we could take, but
Right.
like, kind of knew what was going to happen, right? So like, is that like do you believe we have free will?
Okay, so here's the thing. It took me a time. It took me a place and time. I didn't. So I got to my own rock bottom in life about 5 or 6 years ago, and I didn't believe we had free will. But then I learned that if everything happens for a reason, everything is about our perspective, which are things that I had always told people. Like, that's just kind of something that came natural to me and that I really always believed in. If that's the case, then I do have some choice. And the choice we have is what we're talking about right now, that simulation. And that simulation is created on perspective. So I don't have the choice on how some things are going to play out, but I have a choice on what perspective I'm going to look at it from. You see what I'm saying? So I could give all my, because I believe energy goes where attention flows, right? I don't watch the news. If I know about something that's going on, it's because it popped up in my social media, or somebody that I care about, posted it and shared it, and I happened to glance at it, or it was a part of a conversation. But I don't watch the news because I don't want to give the news, which in my perspective is negative 90% of the time, my attention. I'd rather give the attention to the quality time I spend with my daughter, or the art that I create, or the cool conversations I have with my friends, or socializing, or something. And I'd rather give my attention to things that matter to me, because I have control over that, right? I don't have control over Donald Trump getting shot. by the ear. And I don't have control over the fact that all these other people decided to wear coverings over their ear to look just like him to support him. Like, I'm not going to, that happened. It's a thing. They believe in it. It is what it is. But my perspective is not in that world. So if I don't, and this is a
we've
science
had conversations.
fact, this is a science fact. If I don't observe it, did it really happen? Right?
We've had conversations about this before, Lori, where you were, it was really interesting how you talked about, with this soul contract, there's certain lessons that you have to learn. It may not be in this lifetime, it may be in another lifetime, but you're going to keep getting presented with the same problem until you're able to solve it.
Yeah.
You're going to keep, because there's people out there that run into negative situations and they say, why does this always happen to me? And it's like, it's going to keep happening until you accept this is going to happen. And you can fight it several lifetimes. You can take several lifetimes to fight something, or you can surrender and accept it and figure out how you can move on and live your life, with this lesson.
So the key word you said was surrender. And the reason I say that's the key word, it took me a long time, because every time that message would come up to me, you need to surrender. And I would just get so freaking annoyed, because I would always get the message of surrender. And I'm like, okay, well, if I surrender, then what do I have control over? And technically, I don't have control over anything except my response in when the universe brings the next. So the next time the thing that irritated me happened, or the thing that hurt me happened, I had a choice. When the universe decided to give it to me again, I had a choice in changing my response, changing my perspective. So if I can't control anything, I can control at least my perspective on it. And that is where shamanism comes in. And I don't know if you guys know about shamanism. I don't even know if you care. But what I'm trying to say is what shamans do is they dream travel, or they whatever, right? What's happening is shamans go inside of themselves. They go to somewhere else, and and somewhere else is just inside of themselves, outside of the simulation, and they heal the place inside of them that witness whatever it is they're trying to. So let's say it's rain. Their tribe comes to them and they're, we don't have any food. It hasn't rained, blah, 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 blah. And then the shaman goes in and he heals the part of himself that witnessed this victimization in front of him. And he's like, that's, and so he heals that and he comes back out, and then the next day it stops raining. And they asked him, what did you do? Like, what powers do you have? And he didn't do anything but change his perspective. And that is how the simulation changed. But guess what? Here's where it gets like crazy. It changed for him, right? Because everything only exists from his perspective in his simulation. So you see what I'm saying? So that's why we think it's a simulation. That's why we think it's a game, right?
Let me ask you this. Have you guys ever heard of the double slit experiment?
Yeah.
Tyler, have you heard of that?
No.
You haven't? I thought you said science.
Well, I mean, I may have heard it, but it might have been called something else. So why don't you explain it?
All right. So the double slit, basically, I don't know what kind of, like, they shot photons, like, through the photons of light, I believe, through, that's what a photon is, light, right? So they shot photons through this wall that had two slits. And when they shot the light through these two slits, when the photons traveled through the slits, on the other end, they appeared as waves, like in a wave pattern, as waves of light. Or I might have it the opposite, but it's like they appeared as waves. But then when they put an observer, which they use the camera, which, like, I don't even understand how, like, a camera, like how that even works. Like, I guess it works just like our eyes, but like when they put an observer in the room, which they use the camera as an observer to measure it, they didn't appear as waves anymore. they appeared as I forget what it is, but like it wasn't waves of light. It was something else. It was just like dots,
Yeah, yeah.
like the photons went like through the slits individually when being observed, but by themselves they were just potential waves of energy. So basically, it's like a simulation. Like in like when you're playing a video game, I don't know if you guys ever played video games, but if you're playing a video game, obviously the whole map isn't just rendered out there. It would take too much computing space. So like right now, like I'm looking at the door, I know when I open that door, there's going to be a hallway and stuff out there. But right now, I can't see it. It's not being rendered.
So is it really there?
So is it really? It's not. It technically, yeah. Is it really there? Like
Right.
like now, like my. It's not. It's not. It's only potential waves of energy right now.
So
You
that
I think
so that means that you have a perspective. So
there are,
really, technically, your
there are
perspective.
science right now with quantum physics and stuff.
Yes.
Like the particles are collapsing on themselves to create the mass that we see right now.
So your perspective, if you open that door, could be you'll see what you always see, but if the door is closed, outside that door, it could be whatever you want to believe that it is, right? It's perspective. Everything is perspective. So you could change your reality. You could change. So this is why I don't believe that death is possible. I don't believe that we ever truly experience death. And I know that people die and they go to okay, but what I mean is that talking about what you just said about um, you know, quantum, right? So let's say I walk into the street and a car comes and I have a choice at that very moment. The car could hit me. I could notice the car and back up. I could run further, right? So in that very moment, whatever perspective I have, I could choose which. So let's say I choose to get hit by the car. Okay. Maybe, and you're there with me, John. You see me get hit by the car and I die in your reality. But in my reality, I chose to run and not get hit. And in another reality, I chose to move sideways and not get hit. But in your reality, your perspective, I didn't make a good choice and I got hit and you see me die. But I didn't. So I quantum jumped to a different timeline where I live out the reality where I didn't die. You see what I'm saying? But when we do die, like like that's an experience you chose to happen. Like so I had a podcast last week where I had a lady on who had more than one death experience and she goes to the other side. She learned a lot of knowledge. But I kind of feel like that's what you're talking about with the video game. She died in the game. She went and she got a cheat code and she leveled up and they said, you're still supposed to be there. You still have things to do. Get back in the game and go do those things. And now she's here and she knows all this information that nobody else would know unless they left the game for a minute. Right. And so she has all this knowledge and stuff that we could use and she could share with people that are at the same frequency as her that could hear what she's saying and level up in their game from it. But the ones that aren't there yet, they won't even hear it. You talked about frequencies and all that, but not everybody can hear the same frequencies. You only hear that which matches you. You know what I mean? And so when it comes down to it, if I said anything today that you've never heard before, it's a seed in your brain now. So you could choose later for it to come to the forefront when you're like at a certain stage of your own personal evolution, and it'll be like an aha moment and it'll make sense and then you level up.
Yeah, I've heard an interesting perspective, like, and it kind of resonates with me, like, so like if you believe, like God created this realm and created us, like what Wouldn't God want to experience his creation? How would he do that? By creating people and living through them. You know what I
That's
mean?
why that's exactly what's happening. So we are all a spark of divinity, and
Yeah.
we all come from the exact same thing, whatever you believe that to be, right? And we are all it as one. But right now, we're kind of like those photons. We're all experiencing it from different perspectives, and we're going through the slits in our own individual ways. And that's why I was trying to explain. I'm actually writing a book on this. And it's called What's Going On Here? Like, what is going on here? And what's going on is whatever we make it to be. That's why there's no right and wrong. Like, it's whatever we make it. We're literally limitless, multi-dimensional beings. If we don't want to be here right now, and we were at the right stage of awareness, we could literally quantum jump and shift out of this.
Let's talk about what you just said. You said there's no right or wrong. What do you mean by that?
So let's say, okay. So did you ever watch the movie Seven with I think Brad Pitt, right? Where
Awesome movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. So I had an epiphany when that movie was out. I watched it in the theaters, and toward the end of the movie, he's driving in his car, and there's a box in the back seat that was left at his desk for him, and he thinks he's going to get the serial killer, who's been killing people for all these sins, right? And he's on the phone with the killer, and the killer really believes that he's doing God's work. He really truly believes it, and that's what made him do all these things. And then he opens the box and he sees it's his wife's head, right? Something happened in that moment where I'm listening to this guy who really believes that he's doing, and this horrific act happened, right? As humans, we have empathy, and we feel that, and we're like, wow, that sucks, that hurts in our body, our emotions. But that other guy didn't live from that perspective. He really believed from his perspective that
they were all sinners.
He was supposed to do those things, right? And so he did all the things he really truly believed in for his experience in the grander scheme of things. So everybody learned something different from that experience. That guy learned what he needed to learn in this life for that. And everybody who experienced, if that was to a real thing that happened and I witnessed it, and I'm learning that the guy believes it, I have my own experience. I learned something about the fact that, like, I learned about perspective. I learned that we are all living an individual experience, and everything is needed. Black, white, positive, negative. It's all needed, because how do we define anything if it doesn't have an opposite? If it doesn't have a counter? You see what I'm saying?
I believe opposition is necessary. I believe the devil has his purpose too. But like that doesn't I don't think that doesn't mean there isn't a right and wrong.
No, there's a right and wrong in your world. But if I don't believe you, do you see what I'm saying?
saying like his right wasn't our right.
Yeah.
Like his wrong wasn't our wrong.
Right.
I get what you're saying, but it's
because it needed to happen. Like, it needed to happen. Do you not believe in a grand plan? Do you not believe everything happens for a reason? Because if you believe everything happens for a reason, there can't be right and wrong.
I actually do. I believe, and that's the thing. Like that's why I asked about like the free will thing, because do you believe in destiny?
I believe everything happens for a reason.
Okay, so and some people might argue that that's destiny.
Or fate. I believe things are fated, but things are fated because they were pre-planned.
Purpose, right?
The purpose is is a perspective. I think purpose is a perspective, because my purpose could change as my perspective changes.
Ultimately, like that's who you're supposed to be. Like that's who you're growing to be, right? Like
I think we're all on that same path, and we'll all get there eventually. Yes. I
There
think.
there are there are experiences that do change you
Like,
profoundly.
yeah, exactly. Like, let me put it this way. Like, I never, I've been looking at myself. Like, I do a lot of self-reflecting.
Mhm.
Okay? So, like, I've been looking at myself like totally different. Since like even 10 years. I'm 33 years old. So like 10 years ago, you know what I mean. I never thought I would be some of the things that I've become.
Right.
You know, and like so like ultimately it is like my whole perspective has changed. I took a trajectory in my path, but is that who I was? Is that who I was destined to be? Like, you know what I mean? How much control of that do I actually have?
So here's
Well, I mean, your purpose as a human being, once you bring a child into this world too, your purpose changes completely. You know, your perspective on everything, the reasons you do everything are completely different.
but purposes are layers. So, so like you said, you changed, and like you said, you had a child, and that changed, right? And there's profound experiences, and so on and so forth. But those are all layers in the choices that we've made through time. So, so basically, we're all going to end up in the same exact place in the end. That's why everything is okay. That's why there's nothing wrong, because we're all on the same exact path, having a very different experience. And, we're just like everything is consciousness experiencing itself through a different reality. So, for example, somebody else I heard who had a near death experience said that when they were on the other side, they saw they were surrounded by people, and they could see all of their faces, and he knew all of their faces, but yet, and they were all familiar, but yet they all seemed to be the same, and they all seemed to be, but yet he couldn't like pinpoint any particular one. And that's because there's a theory, and to me, I still haven't figured this piece out yet, but there's a theory that consciousness, being that we all come from the same source, one single source, and experiencing itself separate, is that we all experience every possible reality at any given time in any dimension or reality. So here, I could have been in your awareness at one time, and I could have been in your awareness at one time, and there could be multiple awarenesses going on within a human, body at one time, and one soul could walk out and another soul could be in. They have a thing for that, and it's called, I'm a walk-in, right? Where you die, but you leave, and another soul walks in. So my point with that is that there's destiny is only in is more like purpose. If you're going to use the actual term of destiny, we're all destined eventually to get to the same exact place and do the same exact thing. But if you use the word purpose, purpose means that on the path that we've chosen to be on and the perspective that we're at right now, this is what our purpose is. That sounded a little complicated, but that makes sense.
You know, it's like you have to, you can't help but question why you are put in certain scenarios and why you, I mean, so does that mean that the way that I reacted in that one scenario was destined to you? That's how I was supposed to
No,
react to
that was
that?
a choice that you made that ended up happening, like so. um Again, and again, it's your perspective that makes something happen, so
Well, no, I mean, this is a perfect, I had a perfect example of this week at work. Perfect example, right? So I was really busy. I work in the healthcare industry. I was really busy. I walked away from my computer and I didn't lock my computer. And because I was absolutely slammed, it didn't occur to me I had other things on my mind. They had an environmental care rounds, like 15 people whose only job is to go around and point out all the mistakes that everyone else is making. They're very bothersome. I can't stand these folks. They drive me nuts. And so I get an email from my manager. She's like, "Hey, I just want to talk about the incident last Thursday, and if you could just tell me what happened and this and that." And I'm like, "What incident? Like from my perspective, there was no incident. I didn't see an incident, but from someone else's perspective, there was definitely an incident. So I reacted as if like, what incident? I had a computer. Yes, it was unlocked. It was behind locked doors. Like you cannot get to my computer without a key. You have to have a key to get into the store. So was it really insecure because you can't access it without a lock and key, you know? And then so it was interesting how some people thought that there was an incident and I did not. I was like, I didn't see an incident there, so I need you to explain it to me because I didn't see anything.
And did their perspective change when you explained to them that you didn't see it that way?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I explained my way. I don't get to, I'm not privy to the way that they saw things,
Yeah.
you know. I only get the opportunity to explain my perspective.
So one thing I caught in there in what you said was I reacted, right? And so you were already, from your perspective, you were already like maybe potentially annoyed work and the people that were there and what was going on. And then you get a phone call and you're already in a state of annoyance. You don't really want to be there. And maybe the pain from your, knees are bothering you. So you have that unconscious pain nagging at you, right? And then you get a call from your boss and they're like, this incident. And you're like, I reacted, right? But what if, hypothetically, okay? What if you went into work and your perspective was, I know I'm in a lot of pain. I've got to be consciously aware of how I respond or react to people because of it. And so you're more aware of the agitation. And then you go in. So I need to be consciously aware of how I respond. And so then when you're in there and you're mindful of your response to people and you're mindful of, things, and then your boss calls you and says, hey, this incident, you have a moment where you are consciously aware that your knee's bothering you're consciously aware that you don't really want to be at work, you're consciously aware of your mood and your emotions, right? That's mindfulness. So you're aware when your boss says this incident to you, you're aware of how you feel. So you have a split second where you could pause, take a breath, and say, I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. Do you want to explain it to me? And then
I said
validate.
that.
And then validate.
I,
So
yeah.
that means that you have reflected on it and and you could change your perspective and how you respond to your supervisor. But in the moment, you were overstimulated, you were overwhelmed, and therefore you reacted, you didn't respond. You see what I'm saying? Like if you had allowed yourself seconds, or even if you can't in the moment, sometimes you need to say, I can't, this is time. And you
It's
see what I'm saying?
easier said than done. It's easier
Yeah,
said than
it's
done.
easier said than
I've
done.
been when I've been trained, when I've been militarily trained
Yes.
to react. I have
You're
been trained to use my training. I have been trained to respond to things in a certain way, and it's been conditioned. Like they've done it over. They had me do it over and over and over. So then that nerve pathway in my brain is developed.
yes.
So that no,
You're going down
that's
a whole
why.
different path. You're doing exactly what I'm trying to teach. You're saying everything word for word. You just said to the universe, I have a conditioned response. And it's easier said than guess what? Yes, it's fucking hard. And the goal is to rewire our brains and to rewire ourselves, not to react, but to pause, reflect, and
No,
respond.
this has been a goal of mine since I left the military.
Yeah.
And I think that it's very challenging because, I am also, I mean, I'm an artist, I'm a very emotional person. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, John, you love music because you can put your emotion into it and it goes in this creative way and it kind of has a flow to it. Anything that you do that you can do for hours and hours and the time just seems to slip away. It's so important, something you need to do. But there's also other times where your emotions get the best of you,
So
and you are
you could use what you just said as your tool for rewiring your brain. That's the exact thing. His passion for music and your passion for art, So it's going to be the divine feminine that counterbalances this doing world that we've all been conditioned to live in. We're all conditioned to do, to work, to consume, and to do it again, right?
But
And
when do
so
we get to when do you get to reflect?
that's what you have
And
to teach yourself. Yes. So why do you think people leave the world and go sit with monks? Because they're forced. So that is something you have to teach yourself in time, and that's where mindfulness comes in, and that's why people think mindfulness is so hard. But really, if you start small, and so when you're doing art, right, you just said it yourself, you lose yourself in your art. When you're making music, John, you lose yourself in making your music because it flows, right? You get into a flow state, it comes natural. We are supposed to live that way. That is true living in a flow state, allowing and flowing through it. But when things come at us, we have conditioned reactions. So if we were truly flowing, when something was thrown at us, we would flow and move out of the way, right? Instead of being like, and then punch back. That's a reaction.
It's
Okay.
it's kind of hard to live in that flow state when you're constantly worried about paying fucking bills.
That is why it happens one human at a time. But if you live from the perspective that it's not possible and it's too hard and you don't make any effort, guess what? That's going to be your reality and it's going to continue on. But if you're aware now that, oh, wow, I could literally change my reality when I'm doing music. You could do it, Tyler, when you're doing your pottery. Because what happens when you get into that flow state, you could go into that flow state and you could have an intention. Let's just say, John, your neighbor keeps like leaving his trash on your lawn and you can't figure out why he keeps doing it. And you've talked to him about it, but he keeps doing it, right? And you're in there and you're making your music and you don't have a freaking care in the world. But when you go in there and make your music, you can go in there with the intention of trying to rewire your brain to have more compassion. Maybe he's special. Maybe there's something going on. Maybe he's unhappy and that's the only way he can get attention is by creating negative behavior, right? But when you go in and you go in with the intention while you're doing your music to rewire your brain, just start off to rewire your brain to have more compassion for your annoying neighbor who you don't really understand his perspective and you may never know. And you're doing it and you know you consciously want it to change. That's all you need. You just need the intention. Then if you take any intention and you go into a flow state that comes natural to you, it could be walking down the street with your headphones and you get lost in the walk in the headphone, right? But if you put intentionality into that flow state, you've literally started rewiring your brain. Literally. And every time you put intentionality, when you go into an automatic flow state or an automatic mode, it could be driving, it could be a Sunday drive where you're just lost in the music on a Sunday drive. And when you leave in the morning on that Sunday drive, you say, you know what? I've had a fucking shitty ass week, and I don't want my week to be that way next week, And so this drive is going to be good, and I'm putting the intention that I'm going to have a good week next week, and I'm going to make different choices next. And you put the intentionality, and you go about your day. You're literally rewiring your brain and putting opportunities in front of you just by intentionality. You see what I'm saying? You put the energy there. You want to change. You want to change your perspective. So just that alone is all it takes. And that's why I do what I do with the podcast, because everybody might not agree with the things I say, right? But I've planted seeds of awareness in their brains. And at some point, when they're in the middle of their life, they're going to have an aha, and they're not even going to remember where it came from. But they're going to have an aha moment that was, oh, I get it now. Oh, okay. And they'll naturally, like I'm changing, just you guys are changing mine even just by having this conversation. We are rewiring our brain to think in different ways and looking outside the box. Talking about conspiracy theories, at least we started that way. We had the opportunity to maybe that could have happened. Maybe it, but we thought outside the box. We did not come into this conversation today with conditioned thoughts. We came into this conversation open to conversation, and wherever it goes, it goes. That is rewiring your brain. That is not getting stuck in the same pattern. And so I tell people all the time, do something different every day. If you drive the same way to work every day, the next day take a mildly different path. And when you go to brush your teeth, maybe don't brush your teeth first. Maybe go in the kitchen. Like, get out of patterns, get out of habits and break those. And that is how you rewire your brain. And that's how you change the game. You change the game by changing your perspective. And all you need is intention. All you need is intention to manifest. Put it out into the universe. So clearly we got really off topic, but in a way we didn't. Everything happens for a reason. You came on and talked about critical thinking, and I hope that I gave you some things to think about, and I definitely have more to think about, and I just want to thank both of you for being a part of that today.
And I don't think we really did go off topic, man. I don't, because everything that we discussed was a theory, and everything that we discussed required critical thinking and analysis. And we interpret, we put in our perspectives, which is exactly what we have been discussing. So I don't think we got off topic very much at all.
Yeah, because I saw the gears turning, like when I mentioned about like the buoyancy, because like people don't, I mean, like a lot of people, like I think you even said the theory of gravity, like it's still a theory, like a lot of people don't, they're just not open to listening to things, and then you asked me, and like I explained as best as I could, but like I saw like you were like nod your head, like, okay, I could tell you were open to things.
The best things I've learned from people, not from books,
Connection.
not from something
From the
that somebody
connection.
wrote down, but from something that somebody said or showed me or demonstrated or lived out that I had not thought of before, or that I could not possibly know, because I don't have that disease process. I don't live that life. But when they explain it to me, and the struggles that they go through and the things that actually help them, I have to take note of that so that I can share that with other people that are experiencing something similar.
John,
So I have
to take away, like from what Tyler's saying, and from the conversation at hand in general. Do you have a takeaway?
I don't know if it's a takeaway. I just wanna say thank you for your service. Like that gives you a whole different, completely different perspective than I don't know if Lori's been in the service, but like people like myself that haven't been in the service, like that's a whole nother reality. And also I just want to say, like working in the mental health field, man, I know about the compassion fatigue, and you got to take care of yourself, and you can't take care of yourself. You can't take care of others unless you take care of yourself.
That's my biggest takeaway, is I need more time for reflection.
Yes.
And I need more time for contemplation, which is why I need to get back into yoga. Anyway, I get to take my beautiful wife out to dinner this Wednesday for date night. So.
Well, thank you so much, both of you. And John, feel free to email me, and any links that you want to share to the public audience and how they can get a hold of you if they maybe want to talk to you about flat Earth or anything else you talked of. Feel free to email me that over, and I will add that to the show notes. And thank you all for listening, and thank you both for being here today for this awesome conversation.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
Okay.